This is Agbogbloshie, a narrow strip of reclaimed wetland on the edge of Accra, Ghana's capital, that for years became a magnet for discarded electronics from across the globe. Here, cables are stripped, circuit boards are smashed, and plastics are burned in open fires, all to recover a few grams of copper or tin that will pay for one more meal. It's a place where modern convenience meets ancient poverty, and where the hidden costs of our throwaway culture are visible, raw, and immediate. Agbogbloshie did not appear overnight. What began as a wetland and then a small informal settlement grew into an intense hub for scrap and reuse as Accra urbanized and demand rose for used electronics across West Africa. Second-hand imports, whether functional or broken, increased with expanding electricity access and the desire for TVs, phones, and computers. Over time, this trade morphed. Alongside repair markets, emerged an informal recycling economy that specialized in taking apart electronics, sometimes from very far away, to reclaim valuable metals. International NGOs and researchers documented huge flows of materials and intense local dependence on this informal economy. Walk the site, and you meet people at every stage of the salvage chain. Collectors who scavenge streets and dumps for anything with a wire. Dismantlers who beat apart plastic housings by hand. And the burner boys who set cables on fire to melt insulation and expose copper. The work is loud, dusty, and dangerous. Workers use little or no protective equipment. Children and teenagers are common, drawn by the chance to earn cash in a city with few safe jobs. For many families, the income from a day sorting scrap is vital, but the costs, poisoned soil, contaminated water, chronic illness, are paid by the community and future generations. Why is this work so hazardous? Electronic devices contain heavy metals and toxic chemicals: lead, cadmium, mercury, brominated flame retardants, and persistent organic pollutants. When circuit boards are smashed, when plastics are burned, or when acid baths are used to separate metals, toxins are released into the air, dust, water, and soil. Studies have repeatedly found elevated blood lead levels among workers and nearby residents, contaminated soil and food chains, and correlations with respiratory and neurological problems. Researchers warn that infants and children are especially vulnerable. Exposure correlates with developmental and even increased infant mortality in areas affected by e-waste pollution. These are not hypothetical risks. They are measurable, documented harms. Agbogbloshie's story is not just local, it's global. Electronic waste flows along shipping lanes from wealthier nations, sometimes under the label of used goods, to ports in West Africa. Weak regulations, loopholes in international conventions, and a global appetite for cheap electronics create a market for dumping and second-hand imports. While a share of imported electronics is reusable, a substantial portion arrives dysfunctional and ends up as waste, fueling the informal recycling economy. This creates a moral and legal dilemma. Whose responsibility is it when high-value waste from one region poisons another? In July 2021, the Accra Metropolitan Assembly carried out a major demolition and clearing operation in parts of Agbogbloshie, framed as a sanitation and lagoon restoration effort under the Let's Make Accra Work policy. Tents, stalls, and makeshift workshops were raised. Thousands of people were displaced. International observers and many locals criticized the demolition as coercive and poorly planned, arguing that it destroyed livelihoods without providing realistic alternatives. Even after the razing, informal e-waste activity persisted in scattered pockets around the old site, driven by poverty. The economic incentives of salvage. NGOs and government programs have since tried alternative approaches: training centers, safer dewiring machines, clinics, and pilot recycling facilities. But the challenge remains complex. For many workers, Agbogbloshie is more than a toxic landscape. It is a place of survival, solidarity, and enterprise. Entire microeconomies developed: buyers, middlemen, transporters, small traders, food vendors. Many migrants from the north of Ghana and neighboring countries built lives here. The blunt truth: without realistic economic alternatives, demolition or regulation alone cannot erase the practice. Sustainable change requires inclusive programs, vocational training, formalized recycling with safety standards, buyback, and extended producer responsibility schemes that change the economics of e-waste at source. Several initiatives point the way forward. Pure Earth and partners have funded safer work centers and mechanized tools to remove insulation without burning. Germany and other international partners supported Ghana's national e-waste strategies and training projects. Local health clinics and NGOs provide screening and community education. Policy measures include stricter customs enforcement on waste imports, better data collection, and producer responsibility. Laws that force manufacturers to manage end-of-life electronics. But success depends on coordination. Regulators, industry, donors, and communities must align economic incentives so that safe recycling becomes the profitable option. Agbogbloshie forces a global ethical reckoning. The smartphones, laptops, and TVs we discard carry metals and chemicals we rarely see. And sometimes we ship the problem elsewhere. Ending the toxic cycle requires action at multiple levels. Better product design, longer device lifespans, responsible recycling infrastructure at home, enforceable international rules, an investment in safe local recycling that respects workers' rights. Otherwise, Agbogbloshie will be only one of many such sites, a repeating pattern of profit in the north and pollution in the south. Today, the smoke still rises in corners, and the hum of dismantling continues in new clusters where the old yard once stood. But hope is not absent. Small clinics, training centers, and committed activists are proving that alternatives are possible. Agbogbloshie reminds us that our technology's story does not end at the store. It loops back to human lives and fragile ecosystems. If we want a future without e-waste graveyards, we must take responsibility now as consumers, companies, and as citizens of a connected world.